Ohio State has the number 4 class in the country behind USC, Notre Dame, and Clemson. It features 4 receivers, 3 offensive linemen, 1 tight end, a linebacker, a defensive back, and a specialist. And now it has its first running back in Favour Akih, the Rutherford B. Hayes, Delaware Hayes High School running back, the 4-star recruit, the number 166 player, the number 14 running back in the country. I'm Stephen Means, and that is Andrew Gillis, who knows a lot more about this kid than I do. This kid, Andrew, committing fresh off of his official visit, was this something that maybe people saw coming?
Yes. So we'll get into who he is as a player because everybody wants to know that, but I think that how we got here is also just as interesting. Like you said, he's from Delaware, Ohio, which for those not in the state, no, we don't mean Delaware. We mean the city of Delaware, which is like 30, 45 minutes to an hour, maybe somewhere depending on traffic, about north of Columbus. So he got his offer on the first day of Ohio State spring practice. And he was down in Columbus for spring practice. Again, very, very easy for him to get down to spring practice. He was down about like 3-4 times. He was here for the spring game. He was here for just a couple random various practices. And shortly thereafter, I went up to go talk to him and ask him about his recruitment, ask him about his offer, ask him about kind of the process, because he had scheduled a USC visit. He had scheduled a Miami visit. He had really kind of solidified that was his top 3. So I went up and talked to him, and right away you could get the sense that this was a little different with Ohio State. You know, Stephen, you ever get like birthday gift or Christmas present or something, and sure, you get a few other things that you really like, but then when somebody says like, what'd you get? You lead with it. Oh, what'd you get for Christmas? What'd you get for your birthday? What'd you get for that? What'd you get for that? You say, oh, well, I got this. And you could tell that was kind of the way that he was talking about Ohio State. I think he wanted to give USC a chance. He wanted to give Miami a chance. I think he was very interested in those programs. But Ohio State just meant a little bit more. And I'm in our conversation, I'm asking him, you know, what do you want to get better on going into your senior year? What is your next evolution as a running back? And again, Stephen, we are like 3 days away or 3 days off of talking to Carlos Lachlan. Carlos Lachlan said the number one thing that high school running backs struggle with is pass protection. So Favour looks at me and he says, pass protection is the number one thing that I'm trying to get better at. And I went, little interesting. And I don't think that was random. I don't think that was something that just kind of popped up out of nowhere. I think he was taking Carlos Lachlan's instructions then because he had an idea, and I think now it obviously comes to fruition. So, you know, a really interesting process for the homegrown kid. You know, he got an offer just 3 months ago. Now he's committed to Ohio State. I think when he got this offer, you could kind of see this one coming. I think there was a thought in my mind, at least, that, you know, maybe we could see a commitment a little bit sooner, but now here we are. You know, we always said that he would like to have it done at least by late June. It is before late June, and he's now committed to Ohio State.
He chooses Ohio State over USC, who also has an official visit scheduled for next week. I'm pretty sure that there's a good chance that he's not going to take that visit instead. And also Miami seemed to be in the running with this kid. What does he bring to Ohio State? How does he fit into Carlos Lachlan's vision for how he wants Ohio State's running back room to run?
So he's fast. So, you know, we talked about this on Buckeye Talk, which, you know, we hope everybody listens to, and 614-350-3315. You know, I've texted some of this stuff out. When you have a running back, Carlos Lachlan said, you know, earlier in spring practice, that you never want to have 2 of the same guy, right? You never want to have 2 of the exact same type of player. And Favour, to me, definitely strikes as the speedster, as the guy that when you look at, he can move a little bit. You know, when I went up to Delaware, I was talking to Favour's coach, and he basically told me, you know, he had to wait a little bit. He was relatively new to football, and he had to wait his time. So some of these kids, they got camp early, and I think that might be why Favour's rankings really didn't accelerate until later in his career. You know, right now, he's the number 166 overall player in the composite rankings. A year before, he was not that high, right? He was not all that high. So I think when he started playing as a junior, you know, his coach said the first time he took a handoff at the end of the first half and just ran away from everybody, So we as coaches just kind of looked at each other and went, okay.
Mhm.
I think we might be seeing a lot of that. His ability to run away from people is something that stands out on film when you watch him. How fast he can be in the long run. I think that's really important, and I think that is what Ohio State's going to get. He's a great athlete, and I think it is hard to say, he's going to have 4.2 speed, 4.3 speed. I don't know any of that right now, and obviously that is too early to tell. But I do know that this kid can move, and I think Ohio State fans should be really excited because I think you're going to have a home run threat out of the backfield in terms of when he touches the ball, whether that's in the screen game, whether that's getting the ball in a handoff. And, I think with this commitment, you now have somebody that you feel really confident in that at some point is going to turn into a player, because you watch his film and the elusiveness, the speed, the agility, the acceleration, that flashes. But Favour told me that I like to put my head down and run people over too. So that's that kind of aggressiveness that you like to see, where it's, I'm not looking to run people over. I want to run away from people and get to the end zone. But if I have to put my shoulder down and put my helmet down, I will. And I think that is what you like to see. So I really like this commitment for Ohio State, and I think Buckeye fans should too.
So Ohio State's offered 17 running backs in this cycle. Favour Akih's the 8th one to find a home. He's the first one to find a home at Ohio State. The other ones who have found homes are Jonathan Hatton Jr., who's headed to Texas A&M, Javian Osborne, and Jonas Walton, who are both headed to Notre Dame, Demarius Yates, who's going to Ole Miss, Deshaun Rideau is going to USC, Javian Mallory is going to Miami, and then Jermichael Jones is also going to Ole Miss. There's also Favour Akih's one of three running backs who are taking official visits. He just wrapped his up. Savion Hyder, the number 17 player and the top running back in the country. He was here the week before that. And I think Derek Cooper, number 30 player, number 2 running back in the country, will be here 2 weeks from now, if I have that correct, Andrew. I am assuming that Carlos Lachlan is not done in this class, and either Savion Hyder or Derek Cooper, in an ideal situation, one of those guys joins Favour in this class. Is that right? Is that the right view on this? Is they want 2, and they would ideally want it to be Savion Hyder in Favour Akih or Derek Cooper in Favour Akih?
That is correct. So they are going to get Cooper on campus at the end of the month. He tweeted actually a couple of days ago, as we do this video, that commitment date coming soon. So you would hope that that would be relatively short order for Ohio State's purposes, so that Ohio State can have that idea of, okay, if we need to pivot, here where we go. Here's where we can go. Here's what we can do. So Savion Hyder, 5-star running back out of Virginia, number 1 ranked running back in the 247 composite rankings. Derek Cooper, number 2 running back. Ohio State's in the mix for both those guys. They are legitimately in the mix for both those guys. Hyder has been somewhat of a tough recruitment to get a read on.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't talk about his recruitment a lot. Cooper, it's Ohio State and Florida and the SEC. This is what it is. You're battling Florida State, you're battling Miami, you're battling Alabama, you're battling Georgia. It is a very stereotypical battle. Now, Derek Cooper does go to Chaminade Madonna Prep down in Hollywood, Florida.
Chaminade.
Famously, Ohio State does have a pretty good receiver by the name of Jeremiah Smith that attended that school. Perhaps you've heard of him. So Derek Cooper is a 5-star running back that obviously I think is maybe more of your in between the tackles type of guy. I think he's a little bit stockier, a little bit bigger. Savion Hyder, I think he's a little bit in that kind of James Peoples mold, where they are definitely a little bit bigger and definitely a little bit maybe more ready from the jump. I think where if you were to take, let's say, Hyder and Akih, or Cooper and Akih, I think you feel better about Hyder or Cooper playing right away. But I think that is what you want. I think you want 2 in this class, and I think you want to be able to set yourself up to where going into 2026, you feel okay, because where we're at with this conversation with the Ohio State running backs is pretty interesting, because CJ Donaldson is going to be gone, but James Peoples, Bo Jackson, Isaiah Rogers, Turbo Rogers, Isaiah West, and Sam Williams-Dixon. You have 5 guys, and then you add Akih, there's 6. Maybe you add one of the other running backs. There's 7. Somebody probably leaves from that room. So you don't need 2. But I think with how good Hyder and Cooper are, you definitely want 2. And you definitely would like to add 2 and keep restocking that room with young talent. So we'll see where this goes. Obviously, stay tuned to the text 614-350-3315 because whatever happens with those top 2 guys now, Hyder and Cooper, I think that is going to kind of determine a lot because you look at where Ohio State has some offers. Carson Baker is a 4-star running back out of Langston Hughes down in Georgia. He is not going on his official visit anymore. He was scheduled to go on an official visit. That's not happening. So does Ohio State feel comfortable taking a running back who, maybe isn't as highly recruited or anything like that as a Savion Hyder or Jarrett Cooper? We'll find out. And that is something that we don't know right now. And that is something where it's, hey, maybe you really like 2 kids in 27 and you're pushing for them earlier. And there's a million different ways that this can go. And we could talk for 30 minutes about the way that this running back landscape can pull. But Akih gets you a base, and it gets you right now to a point where you have 6 going into 2026 if nobody leaves. And now you can go big game hunting with Savion Hyder or Jarrett Cooper. And I think that's a big deal for Ohio State because I do think Favour Akih is going to be a pretty good running back.
I don't think 7 is that many. And I got to see how this works. For if Carlos Loughlin's going to be by committee, there might be room for 3, maybe 4 running backs to have some type of role here. So you only got 3 guys sitting. Favour Akih, is this a guy who is in the mold of James Peoples or Bo Jackson, where it's like, hey, they could play right away if the opportunity showed itself? It didn't necessarily show itself for James Peoples last year because Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson were 2nd-round draft picks who were pretty good, so they got all the carries. It sounds like Bo Jackson could push for meaningful playing time. Or is this more in the mold of Isaiah West, Sam Williams, Dixon, where the 2026 season is a development in the background? Let's check back on him in 2027 situation.
I think this is a development season for Favour Akih in 2026. Now, that does depend on how his 2025 season goes because note what I mentioned earlier. He is still kind of relatively new to this. He did not have, like some of these guys played as true freshmen and played as true sophomores. And Rutherford's coach joked to me, he was like, yeah, we put Favour Akih in the game and he started running all over people. And you could hear parents go, where the heck has this kid been? Where has he been the last couple of years? So maybe he has a great senior year. And by the end of the year, we're talking about a top 100 recruit who looks the part, plays the part, is the part. And maybe that's the conversation. But I think right now, you would say, especially with what Ohio State's going to have in that room, you would say it's probably a development year. But if he ascends in his senior year, I am not going to leave the possibility of a Bo Jackson. Hey, maybe this guy gets 3rd carries. Maybe this guy can be that guy that works in, maybe not as a starter, maybe not even as a 2nd-team guy, but maybe this guy does work in earlier in his career than you might think.
Number 166 player, number 14, running back, Favour Akih out of Delaware, Ohio, Rutherford B. Hayes High School, the first running back commit of the 2026 class for Ohio State, the 14th overall commit for the 4th best class in the country. Get the text 614-350-3315. It's a 2-week free trial. That's the first place we went with this information before we literally did anything else. With the recruiting season is up and going. Official visits, camp dates, everything else happening. 614-350-3315. 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. That's Andrew Gillis. I'm Stephen Means. Go subscribe to Buckeye Talk wherever you find podcasts. Talk to you later.